Hi, welcome to our seventh live video from Hong Kong. Right now we're outside of the Revenue Tower. As you can see behind us, they had a pretty big protest, a sit-in.
So the Revenue Tower is kind of like the financial center for the Hong Kong government. So I guess you could think of it as some kind of combination of the Treasury and the IRS for the Internal Revenue Service for the U.S. government. So what happened was earlier today, like a couple hundred protesters came in and staged a sit-in in the Revenue Tower itself. But now they're behind us, and it looks like they're deciding where to go next.
Democracy in action. If only they had some kind of chief executive to tell them where to go. Maybe selected by Beijing. But this is interesting because you've seen sort of the protesters change tactics over, or at least the weeks we've been here. So first, they were occupying outside of the Legislative Council, sort of the seat of government. On Saturday, they occupied the area outside of the police headquarters. And now,
Friday.
That was Friday? Are you sure?
I'm sure.
I don't know what day it is. And then today, whatever today is, Thursday? Is today Thursday?
We're going backwards in time.
Forward in time. Today they targeted the seat of sort of like the financial institutions.
Well, what's interesting actually is that Friday when we were doing that live in front of the police headquarters.
Possibly Saturday, I'm not convinced.
Actually, there was a splinter group of protesters who also came here and occupied this building behind us, the Revenue Tower, and across the way, this building, the Immigration Tower. So they basically managed to shut both buildings down with just a few hundred people. So I think they were trying to replicate that today by coming to the Revenue Tower, basically go where the money is, right, to try to bring some pain to the government.
It seems like they've decided on some new place to go, so we'll kind of follow along with it. And I just want to say, thanks to your contributions and to all your complaints about the shaky camera work.
And the one a viewer who told us where to go to get this piece of equipment.
We have now bought what's called a gimbal, which is essentially what allows us to hold the camera and keep it smooth. Matt's holding it right now. It was actually funny. When he was trying it out earlier today, he's using his cell phone with it. And when he turned it on, it just made the camera spin around in a loop super fast. Hopefully that doesn't happen right now.
So, yeah, we don't know where we're going. We're just going to follow them. What else do we want to talk about? Oh,
Taiwan. Let's start with Taiwan.
Okay. So, do you want to start with that?
No, go ahead.
Let's.
They're doing it. So we just have to go this way.
Let's. There are a lot of press here, by the way.
Matt doesn't have eyes in back of his head. It's one of the major limitations he has. I've been very critical of it. I've told him to, get the necessary genetic modification, but he's been resistant because of moral issues and playing God or something. I don't know. He's hard to work with.
Anyway.
Don't tell him about the giant hole coming up in back of him. It'll be very funny. Hey, Taiwan. Go
okay,
ahead.
So, on Sunday, now I'm not sure what day it is, on Sunday there was actually a big protest in Taiwan. About 100,000 people showed up in Taipei to protest against what they call red media, which is pro-Chinese Communist Party media in Taiwan. And
just a heads up, it looks like they've chosen Immigration Tower as the next
here
stop.
We are.
Now they're targeting the seat of immigration.
Okay. Do we want to file in with them?
All right, carry on with Taiwan. Do you want me to pop the umbrella?
It depends if we're going inside.
Good point.
Are we going inside?
Yeah, why not? Let's go inside. Taiwan.
Okay, so Taiwan, there was about 100,000 people or so protesting against the pro-CCP media in Taiwan. It was a protest that they had organized before these Hong Kong protests blew up, but definitely was influenced by the Hong Kong protests. You saw a lot of signs supporting the Hong Kong protesters, as well as the blank your mother kind of
which
meme.
We've explained on other podcasts or other live videos.
And we're not going to do right now. Had also, there were some signs referencing that. So I think a lot of the Taiwanese people were feeling their their compatriots over here in Hong Kong. So we are now inside Immigration Tower and moving in. It looks like everybody's going up the escalators.
Walking and talking is incredibly difficult.
So as you can see, most of the protesters here, again, having trying like the protest on Friday, trying to hide their identities. Okay, so here's a sign over here that says, establish an independent commission of inquiry to investigate the police abuse of power and release arrested protesters. Just rolls off the tongue. But
did you talk about the red media thing about the Taiwan protest?
yes, that it was against red media. Yes.
Yeah, did you explain what red media is?
Pro-CCP media.
Okay, great. And that's actually, we had a very interesting interview earlier today with a author, politician, and political commentator named Sunny Loh, who has been talking about what's called the United Front. And United Front is basically a branch of the Communist Party itself, but they focus on sort of ideological subversion of a society, and controlling media is a big part of that. And you have that in Hong Kong as well. What I guess they are calling in Taiwan red media.
So one of the interesting things that Sunny Loh said about the United Front is that one of the they've been pretty successful in Hong Kong society, except for the education sector, aka young people, teachers, universities,
And a wall of people.
Oh my gosh!
Dangerous for an escalator. Minor technical difficulties. We are alive, though.
Oh yeah, sorry by the way, guys, for kind of ending our live stream in front of the police headquarters the other day kind of abruptly. We didn't realize that some people might.
Some of you thought we were dead. Thank you for your concern, by the way. We are still alive. Gosh, more escalators. Okay. So where are we? Oh, so I was talking to a protester the other night. We were going to do a quick update since we last spoke on apparently Friday night at the police headquarters. So Shelley mentioned, in addition to occupying the area around the police headquarters, protesters also came to the revenue tower, kind of held that for a little bit. But since then, there's been some interesting developments. There was a pro-police rally the other day that was obviously organized by pro-CCP forces who have been trying to frame this as, violent CIA-led protesters attacking innocent police. Basically the same line that you see them trying to use with the Tiananmen protesters of 1989, where they slander the protesters. Last night there was a anti-police brutality rally. And so I spoke to a protester at that, and one of the interesting things he mentioned, I won't say which major corporation he's with, but he's telling me that a lot of corporations in Hong Kong are sort of changing how they do business with China. They are doing more and more like video conferences with their counterparts in mainland China, because apparently there's a growing concern that if they send employees into China, into mainland China, they won't be able to keep them safe. They could be abducted, used as political bargaining chips. So really, like, all of this is having a major impact on the financial situation of Hong Kong. And in the next day or two, you'll see an episode of our sister show, America Uncovered, come out that focuses on, we've talked about it a bit on the live broadcast, but what's called the Hong Kong Policy Act, which is basically legislation created in the U.S. in 1992 that recognizes Hong Kong as sort of economically separate from mainland China. And so the U.S. and U.S. businesses are allowed to deal with Hong Kong as if it was not mainland China. So, for instance, the trade war tariffs currently do not have an effect on Hong Kong directly. That could change, though, if this policy is reworked. So anyways, I believe it'll be Tuesday, New York time. Check out that episode of America Uncovered, because it a bit rocky, and let me just appraise the situation. People, lots of people everywhere. In general, our experience in Hong Kong has been one of being very crowded, whether it's at protest sites or just the streets in general.
I think they're deciding which floor to go to. They're looking for a specific office. So now we're looking at a bunch of people consulting the...
So I'm just going to suggest to the team that maybe we don't go all the way up with them because we have an interview later that we need to get to with actually Emily Lau, a very...
My thing is spinning, so I don't know.
Your what?
My thing is spinning, so I don't know if it's
the live is still going.
The live's still going. Basically what I'm saying is we might not want to get stuck in here. We have an interview with a pretty famous Hong Kong politician, so maybe let's just kind of wait back here. This won't be our longest live. We have an interview soon, so we're going to just kind of hang out here. Shelley, did you have anything? Shelley, what was this? Do you have something else?
We didn't orders. He stopped in the morning.
Right.
It's in the live. And when it goes back on. Here we go. We're on.
Okay, so as we're kind of looking at what's happening, I don't think we can head out. Let's just wait till this group of people goes up. Yeah, so let's just wait till I think they're going to the 6th floor.
So just an update, we're planning our escape from the immigration office. Although I see the 3rd floor is the floor for the foreign domestic helpers, which is a very interesting segment of Hong Kong society. A lot of, they're foreigners who come to Hong Kong to kind of work as housekeepers.
Indonesians, Filipinos, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like on Sundays, I think there are a lot of them come outside and like just have these all day, like sort of picnics on their day off.
So do we want to talk about that, or do we want to talk about the police thing?
Oh yeah, it's probably more interesting to talk about the what happened at the police headquarters. So go ahead, Shelley.
So there were about. So we stopped broadcasting in the afternoon from in front of the police headquarters, but they actually stayed out there till 3 a.m. So
apparently it was 15 hours.
So they occupied that area, kept the police from kind of coming out for that long. The police commissioner never did come outside. Although apparently he was stuck inside with the other police officers. But it was. It got a little rowdier after dark. Like more and more people were showing up in front of it. It wasn't really great. Situation to do a live at that point, and so there were a lot of people. There started to be some egg throwing.
Also, if you remember, we showed footage of like police in like a sky bridge and just kind of up using cameras to sort of record people's faces, which has always been a concern of protesters that if police have their faces, they will face retribution at some point in the future. So you saw a lot of protesters like shining. Not quite laser lights.
Strobe lights.
There were strobe lights, and there was like thicker green like laser lights. Not the kind that really can permanently damage your eyes.
But the kind of that you would use for mood lighting at a rave.
Yeah, basically like shining those in those policemen's face so that they would have a difficult time shooting. I thought one thing that was interesting was how the police tried to spin it. Because they were like, we didn't clear the protesters, but, because they surrounded the HQ, there was, like, a heavily pregnant woman in the police headquarters and somebody with, like, very, very sick from cancer who couldn't get out. And, first of all, protesters were letting people out. But also...
I mean, I could understand if some people were a little afraid to come out because there was, like, a large group, but they weren't harassing any people who left.
Yeah, and people who had, like, heat stroke or whatever were able to get in and out pretty easily. We're going to start going. But also, like, why was, like, a heavily pregnant woman or somebody dying of cancer in the police headquarters? It was a very weird, not very well thought out attempt to spin it. But lots of egg throwing. There's some graffiti. And another thing was, like, on the side of the police headquarters, since we got here a few weeks ago, there were like recruiting ads for the Hong Kong police, basically, showing how great the Hong Kong police were. Those had been defaced, and police took all of those down. and like very awkwardly covered up like some of the graffiti with just like
was
black
like
plastic bags.
F the popo was one of
Thank
the,
you for not dropping that.
I did not drop another
Shelley's
F-bomb.
learned.
Although I have now, my grasp of Cantonese swear words is very, very improved since Friday night.
It's a different thing now. Anytime I'll hear, "Oh, hi, Mark."
Oh, what? Okay.
Hi.
Oh, yes. Okay, never mind that. But actually, some of the things that they were yelling, a lot of like still
Hey,
like
we're
really
the same height if I'm on a step below you.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
We're leaving Immigration Tower now.
Yeah.
It looked like they were going up to basically I think maybe the 6th floor somebody was gesturing, which is, I looked at the information map and that's where the mainland affairs office is.
Ah, that would make sense.
But,
So sorry we can't take you all the way up there. Again, it's just because we're concerned about internet connection, and also we have an interview we're doing a little later today, so we want to make sure we can get out and get to it. So I think that covers the update from the police headquarters. Should we start answering a few questions?
Yeah, we'll take a few questions.
Okay.
I think some people had left some donations earlier that got deleted from our live stream, so sorry. Just in general, thank you for contributing. And we mentioned earlier that your contributions have helped us do things like buy a gimbal, so hopefully this experience was smoother for you.
Yes. So if you want to hold the phone, I'll hold the iPhones. So Glenn, donate $50 Australian. Thank you. Loving the new stabilized footage. You hear that, Matt? Thank you, and go for this one.
Bob's your uncle has donated 500 Hong Kong. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And Aaron M. donated 500 Hong Kong and said, "Love you guys. Please announce another fan meetup in Hong Kong soon. American in Hong Kong here who loves your channel."
It might be possible. We'll have to see how our schedule kind of plays out. Unfortunately, the protesters are not really keeping us in the loop. But also, everything kind of happens so organically. I don't think there is
I don't think they're keeping themselves in. Like, basically, everybody. When we got to the front of Revenue Tower, like, it was already apparent that people were leaving the tower, but everybody was kind of standing around looking on their phones to figure out what was happening next.
That has been an interesting thing, and I think Shelley, you wanted to talk about this, sort of the Bruce Lee "be like water" mantra the protesters have adopted. Yeah,
this is an episode we're working on. Let us know if you'd like to see it, about the idea that they've been kind of using more guerrilla G-U-E-R, not gorilla the ape tactics that to kind of protest, where like they kind of have just even small groups of protesters, a few hundred people, able to occupy an entire road, or they're able to kind of like move in and out of these buildings, kind of shut the government offices down, then move on, instead of doing a long-term occupation like what happened with the umbrella movement, where they were out on the streets for 79 days.
And they're very organized with things. Like when we were at the police headquarters, there was thousands of protesters, and yet they had developed like hand signals, like something like this for like people needing goggles, or certain hand signals for like a helmet, or if somebody needs scissors.
Or umbrellas,
And wasn't there like an issue where like somebody was like, "Oh, I need a Pocari Sweat," and like instantly, there was a Pocari Sweat.
What happened was a girl, I saw this on Twitter, where like a girl was just talking with her friend about how she wished she had a Pocari Sweat, and then somebody handed her one from one of the hydration stations. So when we were there, people kept trying to give us water or food. Somebody was even passing out inhalers, because one of the things that apparently happens with the tear gas is that like your lungs, like your
you need an inhaler because you can't breathe.
So they've been using inhalers, like asthma inhalers, to help with that. We didn't need any of that, thankfully.
Yeah, I'd say pretty peaceful. Mine's a few eggs.
Yeah, I think the police are kind of wary. Now it's become kind of a PR battle between the police and the protesters, where they're trying to not kind of anger the rest of the Hong Kong people.
It's raining a bit, so I'm going to take you under the tree.
Okay, thank you. So raindrops keep falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red.
Okay.
La?
Okay. So, is there anything else?
No, let's get back to some of the
so
questions.
the other thing was about the Bruce Lee thing. People were kind of using the Bruce Lee's quote about being water, and using that as like a hashtag on these Telegram groups, when they were saying, like I got a message when I was there that was saying like, don't storm the police headquarters, just stay here, just like stay outside, like, be persistent, but don't storm, don't do violence. And then it was like one of the hashtag things was be water. Yeah, so the idea that they're flowing and going in and out of different
it's very different from the umbrella movement where, they were kind of stuck occupying Admiralty and that's all they could do. And then once that was over, the movement was over. So let's get back to a few more questions. We did those, right?
Yep.
Are there any donations?
Nope.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely deleted it. So, let's see. This message is held for review. I wonder how YouTube decides that.
If we don't have any questions, we could end the live stream, basically.
Okay. I'm not seeing too many questions.
If anybody has any, you can ask now. Otherwise, we might...
Now is the time to ask questions. Otherwise, we might sign off and get ready for our next interview. Okay, John Smith just donated $10 Australian. Keep up the great coverage. We love you guys. Thank you. And... let's see.
Somebody asked who we're interviewing.
Emily Lau. That's a pretty big name. She was a journalist, a politician. She's been compared to the Iron Lady of Hong Kong.
She, as a journalist in 1984, became famous for asking Margaret Thatcher whether it was morally defensible for the British to hand over 5 million people to a communist dictatorship. So she's got some strong opinions.
Yeah, I think Margaret Thatcher's response was essentially like everyone is happy with it except for you. You must be like a weird, isolated individual.
Yeah, everybody else likes it. Yeah.
Margaret. People are saying to be safe. Thank you. When the next meetup, we're not sure.
Somebody asked what the protest was about. This is kind of the ongoing protest about the extradition bill, which would let the Hong Kong government kind of send people to mainland China for trial. So even though they said that there were going to be a bunch of safeguards and that people are freaked out basically because there was no extradition treaty with China purposely because they wanted to keep, Hong Kong's independent judiciary system separate from mainland China's totally corrupt judicial system. So even though they were like, we won't, don't worry, you won't get sent to China for political crimes or whatever, people were like, we've heard that one before. So there was like a big panic about kind of Hong Kong people losing their way of life, basically. Yeah.
Check out our episodes we've been making.
Yeah, we've had a few where we've explained the extradition bill more in depth, but now people are asking for things like they want the government to set up an independent committee that looks into police violence during the protests and these kinds of things. And so far the government has not agreed to anything.
No, they've been pretty bad. Oh, we got two new ones. Nick Govind donated $50 New Zealand. Thank you. Great work. Next stop, Taiwan. We've been traveling a lot, so maybe someday.
I think we will end up going back to Taiwan.
Possibly around election time.
Yeah, but we're not going to go to Taiwan immediately.
Right now.
We want to go home.
John Smith donated $20 Australian. Thank you. Another Hong Kong fan meetup, please. We'll see if that's possible. It might be. Stay tuned for announcements. How are we doing on time? I wonder if we need to get prepared for our interviews.
5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, we have a little bit longer, so send us your questions.
We're hearing some commotion now.
People are chanting in Cantonese.
The building, yeah. Someone asked interview with long hair. We actually did interview long hair last time we were in Hong Kong in 2016. And interestingly, back then he was still in the legislature before he got kicked out.
He's been kicked out. I hear he also got a haircut, actually.
Oh, I think he had to in prison.
Oh, yeah, so he's no longer long hair. Yeah, only in spirit is he long hair.
Let's see. Yeah, big Hong Kong celebrities like Andy Lau and Chow Yun-fat seem to have been silent during this. Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure Hong Kong celebrities face. Basically, they will never be able to work in mainland China again if they come out in support of this. And that's something... We spoke to Denise Ho, who is a very popular Cantonese pop star, whose career in mainland China was basically demolished when she supported these students in the umbrella movement in 2014. That hasn't stopped her. She's still been very vocal. And there are some who do speak out on behalf of these issues, but
especially the bigger you get.
Yeah. Wasn't there a director who just...
Oh, well, yeah. There was a Hong Kong director who and I totally forget his name right now, but had posted some, like meme that compared the thugs of 1989 Tiananmen Square protests to the thugs currently in Hong Kong, and asked.
And they're like these skinny, dopey
it
little
was
Chinese
like,
kids.
It was definitely, it was like Nathan Law and Joshua Wong and Agnes Chow, like very non-thuggy people.
They seemed like good students, basically.
And then said, why Hong Kong needs a Deng Xiaoping, which was a little bit alarming.
Kind of implying that, Beijing should send in the tanks to crush these student protesters. So we should look up that guy's name and suggest to everyone not to ever watch his movies again.
But I think there was another case of a Hong Kong actress who had been like kind of a television actress in Hong Kong, but then had kind of expanded her career to be in movies in mainland China, posting something on her, social media about like the Hong Kong protests, and then having to apologize for posting anything about that in order to try to save her career, basically.
Yeah, so that's pretty bad. Let's see. I think we should probably start to wrap this up now. Oh, a few more. Lucia Lam donated 118 Hong Kong dollars. Do you think people should also protest at Chief Executive Home too? Should that be anywhere effective? I think they have gone outside of the Chief Executive office.
Not her home.
Not her personal home.
No, we actually drove by it the other day, and there's a pretty significant police presence out in front.
Yeah.
Wayne Kwong donated 5 Australian dollars and said, try some stinky tofu.
And we have in Taiwan. I don't know if we'll do that here.
Daniel Wilcox donated $4.99 and said, I lived in China 2000 to 2002, and back then I was amazed how bad mainland was then. Now Hong Kong is putting up a great fight.
Yeah, it's great watching them stand up for this. I can't see that because of the raindrops.
Ian Stafford donated $10 and said, I hope you all stay safe. I don't see much news about China over here, so I always look forward to your next video.
Oh, thank you. And just so you know, a little later this week we'll sort of do a live where we kind of cover other China news that we've missed. Like we haven't been able to really talk about Xi Jinping visiting Kim Jong-un in North Korea. So stay tuned for that. We'll be covering some other China news in the coming week ahead. But I think right now we're going to wrap this up. So thank you for joining us at a sort of a protest happening, a protest in action, basically. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.